Moshatama and Palesa Tau.
What does it take to actually help original African brands to get global recognition? We know that we have many brands on the African continent, but how do we make sure that we spotlight them and we give them access to the international market? We speak to Dr. Tonye Rex Idaminabo today, a Nigerian lawyer and entrepreneur who spent over a decade bridging the gap between Africa and the diaspora through his awards platform called African Achievers Awards. He's also the author of the insightful new book, Brand Elixir, which is also subtitled Building a Reputable Brand in Africa. In it, Dr. Rex lays out a powerful blueprint for building brands that don't just survive but shape culture, command respect, and leave legacies. Well, Dr. Tonye Rex Idaminabo is joining us on the line. Dr. Tonye, welcome on the show.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
All right, let's talk a little bit about how you define branding, because I think from an African context, Doctor, branding looks very much like a normal aesthetic for us. We feel like everything that we are associating, whether it's a cultural aesthetic, sometimes we think it's in the margins because we're usually so used to what something can actually become a brand. Was that something that you considered when writing the book? Because at times we have so many iconic symbols, at times we've got so many iconic things that we do here on the African continent, but the thing is we don't see them as brands. Is that where you entered this conversation with?
Yes. For me, branding is it's much more than just a logo, or a catchy slogan. It's I regard it as an overall perception that people have of your business or product. It's just like Channel Africa. How do people perceive it? People know Channel Africa. It's even consistent. So it's how much people feel. What you make them believe. And the impression you leave behind. So I would say it's the core. Branding is the story you tell and the experience you deliver. It also includes your visual identity. Mm-hmm. Like your logo, your color, your design, but also your voice, your values, and the promises you consistently keep. Whether it's a small business or a multinational company, branding answers key questions. For instance, like who are we? Who are you? What you stand for? What should people care? A strong brand builds trust. It builds loyalty. Brands like like Jaguar, brands like Boeing, and it's what separates you from competition and creates a lasting emotional connection with your audience. So branding is just what you say it is. It's what people say about you when you are not in the room.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about that. Because when we are not in the room, usually we don't even talk about ourselves as Africans. We're talking about those who aren't us. So we'll be talking about some of the brands that you highlighted, the Jaguars of this world, the LVs of this world. But our own brands, we don't really talk about them nor support them. So from that branding perspective, it must be more difficult for us as entrepreneurs, as influencers, as manufacturers, in making sure that we actually tap into an international recognition before we actually get that support locally. Could you speak a little bit about our perception of our own brands continentally? Because that was a big challenge that is posed for many years and continues to be a big challenge for us in terms of exposing our brands.
Thank you for asking that. So the perception of African brand internationally is obviously is evolving, and in many ways it's improving as well.
Yeah.
But there's still work to be done. Historically, African brands have been underrepresented on the global stage, which we all know. Often due to stereotypes or limited access to global markets. Mm-hmm. So many international audiences have viewed Africa more as a source of raw materials or culture rather than as a source of finished high quality brand. You know that already. There's some countries, obviously, they come, they mine our iron ore, they mine our, bauxite, they mine our gold, so, but that's changing. now we are seeing African brands, especially fashion. We can see music, fashion. I was the other day in South Africa. I went to a small fashion house, Urban Zulu, and he told me he was coming to do a fashion show here in London.
Yeah.
And then that was very impressive, Urban Zulu. So music, like you can see Davido, the likes of Burna Boy, the likes of Sinach. Beauty tech, we have Flutter Wave right now, and Flutter Wave it's a Nigerian fintech brand. Now it has a prime sports in the United States of America. I think they've spread to several countries. Food. You can see that ShopRite, gaining attention and respect, and their creativity, innovation. Food. I can also say Nando's as well. Nando's,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was in Nando's the other day in London, and I told someone, they were asking why they're playing African music in Nando's. I said, this is an African brand, a South African brand, and the lady was shocked. What? So I can go on and on. Marvin Records. Like I mentioned, Flutter Wave already, breaking barriers and showing that African businesses can compete globally, not just on price, but on quality and originality. That said, so perception just still varies. In some markets, African brands are celebrated for their uniqueness, cultural richnesses in other. So I know there are still bias. People may obviously question the quality and assume the brand is not established. But that's why branding, storytelling, and consistency are so important. So African brands actually need to control their narratives, highlight their excellence, and keep pushing for visibility through global collaborations, digital platforms, trade opportunities. So in short, international perception, I will tell you, it's shifting. Our internet is shifting, but it's up to African brands, leaders to continually shape, the narrative with confidence and consistency. Like, again, I will still mention the Nando's brand. It's been consistent.
Absolutely. And it's not just consistent in terms of its reputation outside of the continent with its multiple branding creative campaigns, but it's also consistent within the continent. So it's not saying, well, our quality storytelling will do that outside of the continent, but they've got that consistency that you're talking about even within the continent in terms of being consistent in their narrative. We'll get some of what you are actually saying are the keys to actually building a local and African brand and taking it outside of your own community and taking it into the world. We're speaking to our guest, Dr. Tonye Rex Idaminabo, who is joining us, an author of an incredible topic that we're expanding today on our Creative Fridays, which is really looking at how do you actually maximize the international recognition? How do you even get access to those particular markets? The name of the book is titled Brand Elixir, Building a Reputable Brand in Africa. We'll continue having this conversation after this.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa Tau on the move.
So what does it take for African brands to gain global recognition? That's the question we're asking, and the question that's been being answered by Dr. Tonye Rex Idaminabo, who is a Nigerian lawyer and entrepreneur, also the author of the new book titled Brand Elixir, Building a Reputable Brand in Africa. And he continues to join us to chat about, not just the challenges, but the possibilities of African brands making it global. The word brand has becomes quite fickle, Dr. Rex, because we all now use it so much because of social media, right? I'm a brand, you're a brand this, brand that, brand the other. Do you think that branding in Africa has changed due to the social media landscape, and maybe has the art of branding itself been lost in social media?
Yes. Thank you very much. For instance, like I said, my book covers, obviously it's more than a guide. It's also a call to action, So I will tell you, branding in Africa has actually changed, and it's still evolving. in exciting ways. So, in the past, branding has often been seen as something only big international companies did. Like I mentioned earlier, the Jaguars and the rest of them. So it was limited to just having a logo, a business card. But today, more African entrepreneurs and creative are understanding that branding, it's about full experience. You give to your audience how you look, you sound, you feel, and what you stand for. So we're seeing big shift towards intentional, purpose-driven branding. So African brands are now telling richer stories, tapping into local cultures, presenting themselves with more confidence on the global stage. Whether it's in fashion, as I said earlier on, media, I gave instances of food of companies. So there are noticeable upgrade in quality, in designs, messaging and consistency. So social media and digital tools have also played a big role. They've leveled, obviously, there's a level playing, well, everybody can be on social media, but the way you carve your narrative, you tell your story, and allows you when small businesses from remote parts, maybe from Kinshasa, of Africa, or to reach or somewhere deep in Accra, so reach global audience and express their identity through powerful ways. That's why you could just Google and just say, I need a book, something that can tell me how to, obviously on branding, because of brand Elixir. You can just check it online immediately. It's powerful. You go to Amazon, you buy. So most importantly, African brands are no longer trying to imitate the West.
Yeah.
They are creating their own trends, rooted in African pride and creativity. So yes, branding in Africa has definitely changed, and it's only getting stronger as more people realize the power of building a brand that reflects who they truly are.
I'm glad that you're saying that we're no longer trying to imitate the West, which is a lot of what, African brands used to do before. But we are still trying to appeal to the global market, right? Africa is unique in the sense that we have rich cultures, rich cultural nuances. How do we continue to respect those cultural nuances? How do we continue to respect who we are as a people and, our traditions while still trying to appeal to a global audience?
Thank you very much. That's a very interesting question. So respecting who we are, starting with knowing who we are. That means being deeply rooted in our identity, our culture, our values, our history, which is very important, and our unique ways of doing things. So in today's fast-paced, globalized world, it's easy to feel pressure to copy trends, to fit into external standards. So what I would say we must just remember that our strength lies in our authenticity. So you see, you see the way we even speak our language. I went to Botswana that time. From the airport, everyone is still speaking the same thing. Their language, how they dress, and their pattern of doing way. So we continue to respect who we are by embracing our languages, celebrating our traditions, telling our own stories on our own terms, without being influenced. So whether in business, in arts, in fashion, in everyday life, it's about, showing pride in our roots and not just being afraid to bring that into modern spaces. We should go to modern spaces where they say the Black Tie event, we should come with our own culture, our own, what we wear, how people see us. The other day I was just looking at the Commonwealth Secretary General from Ghana. She wore something, a skirt, but it was still with the African fabric. So also education plays a big role. When we teach our young people about where they come from. They grow up with a strong sense of self-worth. They begin to see their culture not as something to hide, but something to honor and share with the world. So, and finally, respecting who we are also means, we support each other. Yeah. We know there is we're African. So we are not saying I am from, Okrikade in Nigeria, or I'm from Zulu, I am from, Maasai. So respecting who also let's support each other. When we uplift local talents, buy African-made products. Every single time I go to any airport in Africa, I must buy something that depicts that country.
Yeah, that's so important. Let's wrap it up because we're running out of time, Doctor. I mean, we are doing well. When I look at the statistics, Africa's best brands are ranking between 14% share of the top 100, although European and North American brands still dominate. And the thing about it, it's about maintaining that market share and that longevity being something that you are applying on a consistent basis. I mean, when you think about the big African brands, MTN, Dangote, etc., we are competing in the huge landscape of strong brands like Nike, like Coca-Cola, Apple. How do we make sure that we maintain that longevity? Because that can be a big challenge for us.
Very good. So first of all, I said something in my book. I said something in my book, how people can also, their reputation is very important. So again, sorry, I'm just referring to my book every time. So maintaining longevity, whether in business, personal growth, or creative work, comes down to three key things.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is consistency. Number two is purpose and the ability to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
First, consistency builds trust. It's just like Channel Africa. When I said Channel Africa said they wanted to interview me, I just know this brand has been consistent. So whether you're a brand, an artist, or a leader showing up with the same level of quality, values, commitment over time is what keeps people connected to you. So secondly, you need a clear purpose. Trends come and go, but if you know why you do what you do, you always find a way to stay relevant as a brand, So purpose gives direction, especially during tough times. So on the third, I said was adaptability. It's essential. The world is changing fast, technology, market, and even culture. So stay connected, stay around obviously, if you want to stay around for that long run, so you must be open to learning, evolving, and growing while still staying true to your core. Because you can't think about going to a new direction and doing the same old thing, and you want to progress and you still don't want to, learn, you don't want to evolve, So longevity is just about lasting. It's about staying value over time. That means staying grounded in who you are, who we are as Africans. So the flexibility enough to grow with our audience and world around us. So
all right, well, we'll have to leave it there, Dr. Rex.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing. Just really quickly, in a few seconds, where can we find this book?
Yes, so if you just go on Amazon, you just type Rex Idaminabo Brand Elixir. So Elixir is ELIXIR on Amazon. You'll get the book.
Thank you
just
so much.
Building a reputable African as well, you'll see.
Thank you. That's Dr. Tonye Rex Idaminabo, a Nigerian lawyer, entrepreneur, and author of the book Brand Elixir, Building a Reputable Brand in Africa. Great conversation there. It's 9:31 Central Africa time. Let's get our latest sports news.